systems on.
Are you ready to rock?
Woo! Rock and roll!
Initialize sequence.
Man, can he rock. Say hello to the baddest baby in the whole damn town.
Roddy Clear.
Rock on.
Are you the police?
No, ma'am. We're musicians.
And in the words of AC/DC, we roll tonight to the guitar bite. And for those about to rock, I salute you.
Roddy Clear's Irish Music Show.
Yes, indeed it is. Hello then, a very good evening to you. Welcome along to the programme. A little bit later starting on the programme this week, and that is the form for the next couple of weeks while Kevin presents his GAA specials between now and the middle of November. Not that that's going to take away too much from what we have on the programme anyway, it just means it's an hour less. And this being the first of those shortened programmes, it's a special. And 20 years ago this month, or thereabouts, give or take a couple of weeks, an album went on release called A Map of the Universe by a band called Blink. And they are my special guests in studio. The entire programme this evening, or pretty much all of it anyway. It all depends if we run out of steam or not, and we just have nothing to talk about a little bit later on. But everything pretty much is all Blink all the way through. And they have a new CD on release, which is called Catch That Moment. Well, it goes on release in a couple of weeks' time, and we're going to play pretty much all the tracks from it. So let's get things underway. It's kind of apt, I suppose.
I'll try to clean them. If I can't, I'll smash them. And the life that you made yourself is making you a prisoner. I'll try to free you. If I can't, I'll burn your house down. Burn your house down. That Babylon burning, and stand in the glow and feel the heat of the big freeze on its knees. That won't happen. These things never do. All that's left is me and you and you.
It's the opening track on Catch That Moment from Blink. It's a song called Never Too Late to Start Again. Is that kind of an apt title, lads? Hello and welcome, first of all.
Hello.
We've got Robbie, I've got Brian, and I've got... it's not Barry. And Dermot. Barry's not there, no.
No, Barry. Yeah, where is Barry?
Couldn't fit him in the car.
Blink, my goodness, Blink. Back in the 90s, you were kind of, I'm loath to say, the darlings of the industry, of the indie scene at the time, but you were pretty much up there in those days.
We had it, yeah. We did. There's no denying it. Yeah, we did. We people called us the darlings of the NME at one point. The NME wrote about us like every week for a few weeks, and didn't slag us too much.
Take me back a little bit, just to the beginnings of Blink. How you all came to be, and how Blink came to be formed in the first place.
Well, that is it. That's a funny story, Roddy. Because we didn't care. Three of us had been in a previous band. Myself, Brian and Barry had been in a band called Rex and Dino for years. For 3 or 4 years, was it?
Yeah, it would have been, yes.
And we had, we tried everything, just the way any band would at the time, tried everything to get like the record deal, you know, and we couldn't get arrested. So we packed it in, we just stopped. And then after about 6 months, we were at some gig with the Stunning, we were playing the Olympia, and Brian says, why don't we get the band back together? So whatever way it all worked out, we got the band sort of back together, or there was talk of it. But a song, one of the Rex and Dino songs, went onto a CD that was going to America, to a thing called the NMS, the New Music Seminar. And we paid, I don't know, £100 or something like that for the track to go onto this CD. And we didn't want to be called Rex and Dino anymore, and we were finished with all that. And Barry, I remember Barry said to me, can we call the band Blink? I said, I don't care what you call it. I thought it was such a crap name. And I said, Blink. I said, Barry, but I didn't care. I was happy. I was selling stationery and office equipment, and I was happy enough with that. And I thought, well, call it Blink if you want. I thought it was like a bit like a cabaret band's name. And considering the trouble we went to later on about the name, I thought that was fun.
It comes to that now.
But I said, yeah, call it what you like there, Barry. You know, so Blink, yeah. I didn't even tell anyone I was in this supposedly new band that we were. But we put the song on the CD anyway. And then, I'm not joking you, all the stuff you hear, all the legends you hear about bands, and oh my God, the song went on a CD, and the CD was reviewed in a magazine called Music Week in England. And the only song they made reference to, like the entire CD review was just one paragraph, and it said, there's a track on this album by a band called Blink, and it's the best thing I've heard in years, or something like that. And that's all it said. I swear to good God, the next day the phone didn't stop ringing. And there's record companies. Warner's offered us, there was a girl called Emma Greengrass, I remember her name. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember her name. Yeah.
She offered us, and this is no joke, £250,000 in
that
all
must
this.
have been just one of those you're joking me kind of things.
There was no band. We didn't even know Robbie at the time. We were like,
I hadn't even joined. I was still in school. I was doing my leaving cert.
We just been offered a big deal.
Yeah. And we were like, we weren't arrogant, but we were so dismissive of the whole thing because we tried so hard for years beforehand to try to do. We thought it's not just typical. We put out basically an old demo, and this is all happened. So we started banging tunes together, and we knew Robbie through family, and myself and Barry actually went to see Robbie. He was drumming in another band one night, and myself and Barry went along. We thought we just needed a fourth person to somehow balance, because you needed four in a band or something. I don't know what we were thinking of, right? And Robbie was there, and he was just,
I was actually a drummer, and obviously, and I think Dermot turns around to Barry and goes, "Do you want to ask Robbie to join the band?" And Barry goes, "But I'm the drummer." No, we get him to do something else.
We just kind of thought, we better do something, because they're probably going to ask us to do a gig, all these record companies. And I'm not joking, it just kept on.
So it just literally fell together.
Literally.
Now there was, I have to say though, it was a case of, we better write some more songs, because suddenly it was a case of, and we used to do songs in rows of three, you know, we'd go in and do 3 songs, 3, but it was a case of then I was like, okay, can we hear more stuff, can we hear your catalogue? It's like, we'll back on to you now in a few weeks time. I'll just go and kind of nearly kind of write them to order, sort of thing, you know.
But do you think it's because it happened that way that you became as successful as you did, because it was that spontaneous, that you were literally just thrown in there and you had to come up with something that quickly? If you had had more time to think about it, would it have maybe gone a different direction, do you reckon?
Well, I think there were a couple of, first of all, it's like the poker thing. Do you know what I mean? If people probably thought we were being all poker face, we actually just thought this was hilarious. We didn't care.
All these execs thought you were playing hard to get.
Oh, something like that, yeah. And the other thing is, when we come up with our 3 songs, I mean, the first set of 3 songs, the first recording was, if I could be mistaken here, was Ed's Got a New Car, It's Not My Fault, and Is God Really Groovy. And they were like 3 sort of band favourites at the start. But we were banging these songs together and putting them together in such a way that we never would have done before, because we thought, okay, it's not my fault. I basically scream my head off throughout that song. And then I go, I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love. Oh, this is great, this is brilliant. But this is like the sort of stuff that no band would ever do. And we were just doing it because we were sure all these record companies would just go away again anyway. So we were having a bit of a laugh with the whole thing. Or not laugh, but we were being a little bit sort of like creative.
But I mean, ultimately,
but
ultimately, like, it was like, oh, well, this is a bit great, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we would like to actually, you know, we would like to, you know, be in a position to record an album and stuff, you know.
But the impact then that A Map of the Universe made was quite substantial at the time. I remember when Cello came out, and I can remember distinctly turning to somebody who worked in the radio station I was in at the time, and we literally could not believe this sound that was coming out. It was so different from anything that any other Irish band had done. It was so what's the words I'm looking for? It was just so different. I mean, we were expecting to hear, you know, a guitar band as we had been used to at the time, but then when you had the cellos and the violins and all that big sound in it. So we're going to play that in a moment. You've included on the new hits or best of.
Best of. Call it best of.
What's the story on cello then?
Well, I suppose really, you know, an awful lot of what we would have been influenced by the time would have been obviously, I think Dermot particularly, and say Brian, you would have been coming much more from the kind of the Clash and the kind of the punk kind of ethos. Barry particularly, and say myself as well, and well, all of us, you know, things like Massive Attack were hugely influential on us, and definitely I think Massive Attack has to get a name called for influencing cello. There's no two ways about that, you know. And but that sort of obviously what was going on in the UK and the kind of the whole dance thing as well, you know.
Was that the whole UK scene influenced you as well?
Oh yeah.
It does anyway. I mean, like no matter why Irish people try to call it, I mean, it's the big neighbour next door, and like after the 800 years and all the rest of them, we're all still friends and all the rest of it now. But like, you know, there's no denying that
there's going to be a certain.
But you know, things like, I mean, Screamadelica, and obviously that's, you know, the Primal Scream, stuff like that, and those type of bands, they were definitely.
The funny thing about cello was, I'll let Brian get a thing in it, because when we did the
Brian is here as well, by the way.
But I'm
just trying to remember all this.
We had this little dingy little room that we rehearsed in, and we had a keyboard and we had bass, and we just had no ideas, and I was like, oh, what we can do. And I remember we did the famous thing that I always tell musicians not to do. We swapped instruments. And you remember that?
I do.
And Brian was noodling away on the keyboards, and he goes, oh, look at this, do. And I thought, oh my god, that's amazing. And I had the bass guitar, which is like an alien thing to me. And we started doing the thing, but it kind of happened. And I remember then as well that I did not, and this went on for months, I did not want to put words to that song, because I thought the music was too good
on its own.
I just thought I'd leave it on, and basically it became like, I kind of did it in the end to appease the lads. It was one of these ones who were like, look, I'll do it, but it'll be crap, you know. And then I ended up writing the lyrics for cello.
Instrumental on the bass club.
And there's loads of versions of cello knocking around the place.
Well, let's hear the one that's currently this has been remixed and remastered. This particular version. Yeah.
We went back in and we fiddled around with some of the guitar feedback and a few bits and pieces on that. So we didn't fiddle around too much, because you know, like, oh great, after 20 years, you know, here's our new stuff. So it's been more. So it's but it's and this is the album. The second track on it is what you would call the album version. It's the full 5 minutes, which is nothing to be ashamed of.
Here we go. The Best Of compilation from Blink goes on release on the 24th of this month, and then a gig on the 25th. I got that right, didn't I? In the Button Factory.
That's the 25th of October,
yeah. And the album goes on release prior to that. That's Cello 20, as you have it marked on this, but you've just kind of slightly redone it and made a fuller sound. But that was second single thereabouts?
Third release. Third single, I think.
Yeah, we're just talking about it there while it was playing. When that made the charts and when it hit the charts, I mean, for any band with their early singles to have the success that you had with that rather quickly, I mean, it must have, again, another great milestone in the band's career.
Yeah, it was a weird. We just never got. It was like everything we did was like the Midas touch, and we just everything was the first 2.5 years. And then
it's hard after that.
And it's funny, like I literally left school and joined the band, and about 4 weeks later, essentially, there's like all these phone calls happening, you know.
And you're heading all over the world.
I was like 19 or 20. I was recording the album in the studio in London, and because the lads had been around the block a few times and were a few years older than me, and they're going, "You don't appreciate how lucky you are," you know. And it's like, I do. And like 10 years later, going, "Lads, I didn't appreciate how lucky I was."
Well, when you look back on it now, would you, if you could now travel back, would you do anything differently? Would you approach it differently? Would you have a different attitude?
I don't think we could have had a different attitude towards it. I think you just played the cards you were dealt at the time, and I don't think we could have. No.
I mean, clearly,
we had a great time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I mean, clearly, in hindsight, you could say, well, you know, from a career point of view, we could have done that a bit more or that a bit more, but that's not really the band. We were always very kind of very focused on the type of music we wanted to record and release, and we all the type of I suppose career trajectory that we wanted to have for the band. Like things like we spent an awful lot of time in America where we possibly should have maybe stayed in the UK, but we really thought that was the best move for us. And from things that we did, I don't. But
you were getting good vibes, weren't you, from America at that time anyway? So I mean, even that in itself was probably rather unusual for an Irish band so early in the career, and then the decision to actually go out there and do a couple of gigs out there.
Yeah. You know. See, in one way we wrote this particular kind of music. Now, this is what the whole, whatever we ended up was going to be determined by this. We couldn't, I know some people might sort of differ from song to song, but if you sat the four of us, which has happened many thousands of times, into a room, we can't kind of write a kind of a certain type of song. So we can't, whenever we see other bands who are going like into the charts and selling millions of records and this and that, we kind of can't really complain because we don't write that kind of music. The fact that we had any success at all, in fairness, was a bit of a surprise, because like, I mean, there's no, the whole first album, even Cello, even this lovely piece of music, there's no proper kind of chorus in the song. There's no bit for people to sing along and jump up and down.
But maybe that's the appeal.
Yeah, well, I hope that's what it was, but a bit more appeal would have been great. But then, yeah, and I definitely in regret across 3 albums, there's only one song on the whole 3 albums that I don't like.
Really?
And after 20 years, that's to be able to say that, I'm very...
Which song is that one? We won't play it then.
It's on the second album. It's called Baby You Broke My Heart, but you know that I don't hate you for it, and I hate that song so
do you?
Oh God.
I think if you would have wanted to.
Oh man.
Now the next one then, that was A Happy Day. This to me is probably one of the most commercial of the lot of them, or the most pop orientated song that Blink would have out. That would sit very well on
well, this is the one that was on the CD where we got to get a review, but this was the
song. This is the
yeah.
Okay.
This is the one that basically got us signed. But then, of course, what we did was a total Blink thing. The version that got us all the attention, we stuck that in the bin, and we went in and recorded this version,
which is a very pop version compared to the original one. Is like just bass, drums, and vocals, and a bit of keyboards, and a very sparse.
But see, now you got to do another album, and you got to kind of do the extras bits and put all the other versions of the songs as well.
They're all there,
They're
all queued up
with the look on your face. They're all there. Let's have a listen. And then this is that was A Happy Day, Blink.
Little place that we passed through. You had your head turned away, but I knew you were smiling, cause you always do. Carrot cake in the afternoon, and the sun is gleaming through the cream of the spoon, just me and you and me in a little mad hat down by the sea. Above were stars, they were only birds. Stars don't fly in the day, not where I come from anyway. Just me and you and you and me and me and you in a cacophony of angels. I'm taking turns at singing tunes with a little mad wings in the afternoon. At the sea, and the sea was our friend, so was everything. I'd like to freeze that moment in time and wrap it up in tinfoil with little ribbons and tinsel and say that was a happy day. Kindly remove that mad hat. I'm trying to get some sleep down here, so you did, didn't you? Hey, now I've seen it all. Now I've seen it all. Now I've seen it all. That was a happy day.
Roddy Clare's Irish Music Show. 34 years supporting Irish acts.
Forget about you after all that we've been through. Did you think that all this pain is something I ever want to put us through again? I know that I replaced the years with miles while I compensated for the tears with smiles. Compensated till I walked into the tiny magic Indian. It's the wind that puts the moon to bed. A gentle hand to brush across my head. I'm so tired. Years and years have gone by, but I'm still unable to cry. I ran out of time while I was trying to write about an Indian restaurant, a New York night. A place like a photo of a small group of friends, talk of love and friendship, how these things end. I write about the mirrors, my Riverdance cartoon, a tiny little red room, lit up like a bedroom, but I drifted away, lonely again that day. Time flash with faith on a battered street with a number plate. I think of you in this time capsule, this tiny magic Indian. I know it's tiny bit without the sun. I can see why we were so alone. I know it's tiny bit without the sun. Think I can see why we were so alone. Is there an ill wind that puts the moon to bed? A gentle hand to brush across my head. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. Years and years have gone by, but I'm still unable to cry. Wind that puts the moon to bed. A gentle hand to brush across my head. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. Years and years have gone by, but I'm still unable to cry.
The Tiny Magic Indian from the band Blink, who are my special guests in studio for the entire programme. We're doing a special on them, and the reason we're doing a special is because the band, 20 years ago, they released a map of the universe by Blink, and was it 20 years this month? Is it to the
August actually was when it was released.
So the summer of that year. And you've a gig coming up in the Button Factory on the 25th, and the release of the Best Of compilation, from which we're playing the tracks. Catch that moment. That particular song, the Tiny Magic Indian, I think that and cello would be my top two. Which would be my number one, maybe cello probably, but I just love the rawness of that, the hard how hard it is,
great.
you know.
Yeah, that's a great song to play live as well, you know.
What's the story on it?
It's an Indian restaurant actually.
And is it about a breakup? It was somebody you met a girl or something. Is it where you used to go for dinner or?
No, it wasn't really bad. It was
Sorry,
kind of about a
romantic in my
breakup.
head.
Yeah.
It's not the night that we went to the Indian in 8th Street, is it?
Yeah, it was in 1998, and we were all in a little Indian restaurant on 6th Street in New York, and we were doing the toury thing. But I was going through a big breakup actually, and
so I wasn't too far on.
Yeah, you weren't at all. And the tendency that year was to just to kind of, there was a bit of drinking going on, in fairness, but that would certainly be on my part. And I went out to the loo actually, and in this little restaurant, and they had these mirrors. Do you remember that?
Where's this going, eh?
Yeah.
This is never-ending mirrors.
But the loo was only the size of enough of the person to stand there, and then mirrors on each wall. And so as a result of the mirrors being on each wall, there was this endless, the infinite reflection thing. And I was in a very odd place in my head, so I started just doing this little kind of river dance thing to myself, and I ended up just breaking my arse laughing, just in the jacks on my own and I came back out to everyone was sitting in this really nice little peaceful sort of surrounding. I said, oh God, you got to go into the loo in there, you got to go into the jacks and just go in, and when you go in, just do river dance and don't ask me why. And one by one, in fairness, I don't know that everybody went in, but certainly a couple went in, and that was that's the story of the. But the rest of it is really about that guitar riff as well, and putting all that.
That's great. Yeah,
took years to get that song into place, like 3 or 4 years to write that song.
Really?
Yeah. So I agree with you. Actually, that's that and cello.
Because actually, in fairness, funny enough, when you brought that in to the rehearsal room, I remember you had it, and it was real mellow on acoustic guitar. And I remember you and me having the argument about you wanted to keep it acoustic and mellow.
Thank God you didn't listen.
No, you know.
Yeah.
Would that be typical of a Blink scenario then in studio? Dermot, are you responsible mostly for the writing then, Dermot?
I would have written a good chunk of the stuff now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff.
So he gets all the royalties then, is it? Yeah.
No, all the royalties, yeah. Well, that's why I have my own Hyundai, and
no, the €800 mark.
Yeah, no, we do the £800 mark.
Pounds,
I was telling the lads about my eBay excursions. So we wrote the songs from, like, sometimes I'd bring in a song, and that'd be like the song as I would imagine it, and then the band we'd work it out as a band thing. But a lot of cases there would be like Brian would come up with a bass line or something like that.
Or come in with a music idea or something like that, and an awful lot of the songs would get torn and beaten apart in the room.
So I'm assuming then they would start in you know as song A, and by the time you finish with it, would it sound completely different from what it originally started at, or would the bones have still be there?
Not necessarily. I think some of the ideas we came up with from just kind of jamming in the studio, kind of like the likes of Cello was a classic example. We nearly played that song the third time running through it in the shape it is now. So
it found its form very quickly. Or would you leave it then? You know, once you all agreed on, right, that's the sound, we're leaving it that. Now let's not touch with it anymore.
Sometimes say the likes of Cello, it just boom, it happens. It's there, and it's like, this is easy. And then there's other songs we would go around the houses and labour, and that can be frustrating. There's or could be frustrating.
Which you can still get there in the end as well, like going around with working.
We definitely lost a few. I mean, there's a song on the album actually, Would You Kill for Love, and we spent 4 years trying to write that song. And in fairness, the version that's on there, it's debatable amongst the band members, but there was the original version of that song was me and Robbie in Robbie's mother's house, where he's this piano thing.
It was actually like Saturday Night by Wickfield.
Ding 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 ding.
That was it. I mean.
And
don't ruin the illusion.
No, it's like, hey,
go back to Massive Attack.
Dermot, check this out, our new direction.
But the way it starts now, I love the recording. It's brilliant, but but we know we got the song kind of wrong, but the song is still great, and so that's on that album. That's the best we could get. Would You Kill for Love? Do you know what I mean? But then there's other ones like Cello or Tiny Magic Indian, where like, that's smoking.
Well, would you know instantly then as you're sitting down, this is going to work? Like Cello obviously did, but even Would You Kill for Love, taking the length of time that it did take, would you still say, this has the potential to be really good?
Yeah.
There's always a nugget somewhere in a song. You go,
you got to work on it.
There are a few songs though, but definitely the nugget was there, but we just were never able to kind of polish it.
Couldn't get it.
Couldn't get it, and there's actually some songs which we did a couple of versions on, and you go back and you go, actually the original version was we probably had it in the first 5 minutes and then spent 3 years ruining it. You know,
what's more important for you then, the melody or the lyric, or is it equal measures?
For me, the lyrics are absolutely.
I would assume that.
I wouldn't. That's why I hate that song. I still hear. Do you remember what the chords of the thing? I'm going to play. Do you mind if I play a little bit that terrible song? How is it?
Well, the one that you didn't use.
I'm deliberately. This is a song I hate.
Is this which Baby Broke My Heart?
Yeah, Baby You Broke My Heart.
They're my chords, Dermot. I'm very.
The chords are lovely. The words are awful.
And you ruined my song. You ruined my song.
Baby You Broke My Heart.
But you know that I don't hate you for it.
And then I scream it to try to make it sound better, and it's even worse. So like, okay, no, I won't play it.
Keep the guitar in your hand, Dermot, because we'll get your song from you now anyway, so we can stop talking for a few minutes and let you do a little bit of work. So what are you going to do?
Well, actually, on the subject that we're on, there's a song on that album, but the recorded version is gorgeous, which is To Go, which is also Robbie's chords, let it be known to the public.
Is there another song you didn't ruin this one?
But we as a band can't. We can't play it as a band. We just keep making it. We bash it.
It's just funny. It's and it's actually one that I like the recording, but I think the recording's 80% of it's missing the 100%. But it's just one of those when we try to play it live in the room, we're really confident about playing all the other songs. And it was just the other day, it was like, we're just not really getting this, and we don't know why. It's like we're playing all the bits like the recording, but for some reason.
You know, the hairs on the back of your neck and staring the nuts back.
So we decided to leave this off. So at the Budding Factory on the 25th of October. Now, unless we change our mind between now and then, we're not going to play this live. But it's on the album, so this is for you, Roddy.
What's it called again?
To Go.
To Go.
Yeah. Now, I'm not guaranteeing this is going to be any good either. Okay. I keep that stuff, something I wrote about us. You know I write things rough. I walked across my room, sat
down on my bed, and you were everywhere, and you were in my head. But we won't talk today. No, we won't talk today. Deep down, I guess we know. It's why we wrap our hearts and souls to go. If you come round again and we sit down as friends, I'll always want to say, I wish you'd always stay. Deep down, I guess we know. It's why we wrap our hearts and souls to go. To go. As the light burns on bright, it shines for you and it shines for me. Oh, tonight. Deep inside the sound of sadness, we found a warmth that throw around us. You were the light that made me glow. Don't ever fade in time. It's time, oh, to go. To go. To go. To go. As the light burns on bright, it shines for you and it shines for me. Oh, tonight.
Done. That's Dermot from Blink, and the lads of Blink here as well. It was special on the guys this evening because of the fact they're 20 years since Map of the Universe, and that was To Go. That is on the best of compilation.
It
isn't
is,
it?
yeah. Oh yeah. We love the recording that we did. We just can't seem to play it right now.
Will The End Is High and Deep Inside the Sound of Sadness get the same treatment as the album when their turn comes around? Will you re-release or?
Funny enough, Deep Inside the Sound of Sadness, this is the 10th anniversary of that, because we were obviously so unprolific. But we wrote tons of stuff, we just didn't release
an awful lot of it,
yeah. So this Deep Inside the Sound of Sadness was released on the 3rd of September 2004.
Oh, so it's
the 10th anniversary. Yeah. So what we're going to do is see all of Blink's materials were. We didn't know where they all kind of lived. So in the last year or 2 years, 3 years, I've been kind of into the mission of getting everything back together and then starting to get the remastering process happening. So now it's all going to be made available, the whole lot. So is the answer.
We were talking before we came on air, having the cup of tea and all the rest, that you never actually broke up.
No, this is our farewell gig.
So you never went away, really. You were always there. You just weren't working as much. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, like even as sort of friends, there was no argument, there was no band breakup. We ran out of steam. I think that's where we always put it. You know, like we did an awful lot. You know, we just ran out of money and steam. And
of course, you did your own solo stuff then as well, which was also. Did very well for you as well. Got great reviews, as I recall.
Reviews are great. I'm very happy with that. You know.
Do you find is it different now? Blink in 2014 as opposed to when you started? Is it more difficult? Is it easier? Or people, you obviously know the business a lot better than you did then when you started out. So I mean, you know, looking at it now from different eyes, older eyes.
Well, I work in the sort of area, if you like. I work in the
industry. You're still there.
In the industry, as in I run a thing called Garage Land, and I run gigs for bands, and I've been the director of the Irish Youth Music Awards.
So you're pretty much there.
I'm bang in the middle of the whole thing all the time, and I've seen the digital, the changeover to digital, and the advent of Facebook particularly. They've changed the landscape of a lot of things, but also they're kind of easy scapegoats for you know. look, I'm an old fella. I just think music isn't as good now as it was. And what can I say? Do you know
it's something I want to talk about maybe in the next hour of the programme. I'm going to cut you short on that simply because I want to get another track in just before we head up to news at the top of the hour. And I'm going to play Can. And we mentioned that this is a fan favourite, live favourite.
I love the song. yeah. I don't know if our fans, our family, or whoever they're going to be at this gig, will be able to jump up and down anymore. But
very carefully.
Up and down carefully, please. Yeah.
Okay, this is Can. A song called Can from Blink. The album due for release very soon is called Catch That Moment. It's a best of compilation from the band down through the years, and they are my special guests in studio on this Sunday evening. By the way, just to remind you once again, the programme 8 to 10 this week, and indeed for the next 3 to 4 weeks up to around about the 16th of November, while they present the special GAA programmes 7 until 8 o'clock. Next week, We the People from Waterford will be my special guests. We also have Luan Parle coming in a couple of weeks' time as well. Going to take a break for news. We've got much more from the band, and we've got a couple of copies of A Map of the Universe by Blink as well. 083 306 9696. Not even going to give you a question, just if you're interested in the copy, first come, first serve. That okay with you, lads? You don't mind me giving away that easily? Yeah, fair enough. We'll take a break for the news, and we'll have more from the band and more chat, and one or two more live pieces of music as well. It is Roddy Clear's Irish Music Show with you until 10 o'clock this evening. News.